Welcome back. Six current affairs today. Sharp and exam ready. Let's go. So, first of all, we have the finance bill. Now, the finance bill 2026 has been introduced in the parliament post budget. Now, opposition parties in the Rajya Sabha have raised objections, arguing that certain clauses in the finance bill go beyond tax matters, meaning they should not qualify as a money bill at all, and Rajya Sabha should have full amendment powers over them. Now, Article 110 of the Constitution defines a money bill very precisely. It must deal only with taxation, borrowing, or consolidation or consolidated fund matters. If a finance bill carries provisions beyond this, like amending PMLA or tribunal laws, it is not a pure money bill, and Rajya Sabha should have full legislative powers. Government have progressively bundled non-tax amendments like changes to money laundering laws, electoral finance rules, and tribunal structures into finance bills. Now, this bypasses Rajya Sabha's scrutiny on matters that have nothing to do with taxation. On a money bill, Rajya Sabha has just 14 days to return it with recommendations, and Lok Sabha can accept or reject all of them. There is no veto, no joint sitting, no delay beyond 14 days. Finance bill is the annual legislation giving effect to the union budget's tax proposals. Money bill is bill dealing exclusively with matters under Article 110 of the Constitution. Article 110 is it defines a money bill. Rajya Sabha is the upper house. Consolidated fund is the government's main account from which all expenditure is drawn. An appropriation bill is it authorizes withdrawal from the consolidated fund. Always a money bill, right? Next, we have the critical minerals, India's new resource race. Now, India's energy transition to renewables and its semiconductor and EV ambitions depend on critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, and rare earth elements. Now, the challenge China controls about 85% of the global rare earth processing. India is building its strategy through a domestic 30 minerals list, the Kabil Overseas Acquisition Vehicle, and the Mineral Security Partnership with the US. Now, this is not just about mining. China processes the ore into usable materials, which is where the real strategic leverage lies. The Ministry of Mines identified 30 minerals critical to India's clean energy, defense, and high tech industries. Now, the Kabil, which is Khanij Bidesh India Limited, is a joint venture of NALCO, HCL, and MECL mandated to acquire critical mineral assets in lithium rich countries like Argentina and cobalt rich countries in Africa. Critical minerals is the minerals essential to clean energy and high tech with high supply concentration risk. Rare earth elements is a group of 17 elements essential for magnets, electronics, and defense systems. Kabil is the India's overseas mineral acquisition vehicle. Mineral Security Partnership is a US led coalition India joined in 2022 for supply chain diversification. Energy transition is the shift from fossil fuel based energy to renewables and clean technologies. Then the GGBFS, which is the ground granulated blast furnace slag, repurposed industrial byproduct used in cement. Then we have the India China border, normalization or concession. Now, India China border management continues post the landmark Depsang Demchok disengagement of October 2024, which completed the primary disengagement cycle that began after the Galwan clash of June 2020. Diplomatic channels have reopened, but the key question being debated is whether India has regained full pre-April 2020 petrol access or whether buffer zones represent a permanent concession of patrolling ground. Now, Depsang Plains and Demchok were the last two active friction points from the 2020 standoff. The October 2024 agreement, announced before the Kazan BRICS summit, it enabled the Modi-Xi bilateral meeting and restarted diplomatic normalization. Buffer zones are areas where neither side patrols. They were created to prevent renewed friction during the disengagement. Critics argue these zones permanently concede ground that India had previously accessed. Now, India's Border Roads Organization has built over 3,000 kilometers of strategic roads in border areas since 2014. Now, this infrastructure, roads, bridges, tunnels, reduces the logistical advantage China held in the 1962 war and today. So, LAC is the line of actual control, the de facto but under undemarcated India-China border. Galwan 2020 is the June 2020 clash, 20 Indian soldiers killed. Disengagement is the process of pulling back troops and heavy equipment from friction points. Buffer zone is the area where neither side patrols post disengagement. WMCC is the working mechanism for consultation and coordination, and Depsang Plains is the subsector in eastern Ladakh. Then we have the data centers and data sovereignty. Now, India's data center capacity is expanding rapidly, driven by cloud demand, AI infrastructure requirements, and compliance needs from the DPDP Act 2023. But the debate around data sovereignty has deepened. Where is Indian data stored? Who owns the infrastructure? And can India's sensitive data be accessed by foreign governments through laws like US Cloud Act? Now, DPDP Act 2023 is India's first comprehensive data protection law. It establishes consent requirements, gives individuals rights to access and correct their data, and creates a data protection board to adjudicate violations with penalties up to 250 crores. The US Cloud Act of 2018 allows American law enforcement to compel US tech companies to hand over data stored anywhere in the world, including data centers in India owned by AWS or Microsoft. Simply moving data to an Indian data center is insufficient if the infrastructure is owned by US company. Now this the India AI mission funded at 10,372 crores in budget 2024 includes building domestic AI compute capacity of 10,000 plus GPUs to be made available to startups and researchers. Without domestic AI compute, India cannot train India specific AI models and remains dependent on foreign platforms for its AI future. Data sovereignty is basically a country's right to control data about its citizen under its own laws. DPDP Act 2023 is India's data protection law establishing consent, rights, and the Data Protection Board. Data Protection Board is the quasi-judicial body under DPDP Act. Cloud Act is the 2018 US law allowing US government access to data held by US companies anywhere globally. And India AI Mission is the 10,372 crore initiative for AI compute, foundation models, and AI skilling. Then we have the hyperscaler, which is large cloud infrastructure provider like AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. Then we have the WTO MC14, India's trade battlegrounds, right? The 14th WTO Ministerial Conference is advancing negotiations on key issues where India's positions are central. The permanent solution for public stock holding for food security, the e-commerce moratorium on digital customs, duties, and the broken appellate body dispute settlement systems. Now, India leads the developing country bloc on all three. India's FCI procurement program, buying wheat and rice from farmers at MSP, is technically classified as an amber box trade, distorting subsidy under WTO's agreement on agriculture. The problem is the 1986-88 base year used to calculate India's subsidy. It makes India support year. It makes India support appear inflated due to inflation. Now India has demanded an update to this base year for over 20 years. Without it, India's food security program for 810 million beneficiaries remains legally challenged. Now, since 1998, WTO members have not charged custom duties on digital products, software, streaming, downloads. The US and the EU want this made permanent. India argues this cost developing countries legitimate tariff revenue and permanently surrenders the policy option to tax foreign digital companies. The WTO appellate body, its Supreme Dispute Settlement Court, has been non functional since 2020 because the US blocked new judge appointments. WTO MC14 is the 14th Ministerial Conference, WTO's highest decision making body. Public stockholding is the government procurement of food at support prices for welfare distribution. Amber Box is the WTO category for trade distorting domestic subsidies. And Peace Clause is a Bali 2013 agreement shielding developing country PSH programs from WTO challenge. And the e-commerce moratorium is the 1998 WTO standstill on custom duties for electronic transmissions. and the MPIA is the multi-party interim appeal arbitration arrangement, 52 member workaround for appellate body crisis. Then we have the BRICS, Iran crisis, and India's strategic autonomy. Now, India's BRICS membership is being tested by the Iran dimension. Iran joined BRICS in January 2024, creating tension for India, which simultaneously maintains a Quad partnership with the US and has a strategic interest in Iran through Chabahar port and the INSTC corridor. West Asia tensions between Iran and Israel add urgency to India's balancing act. Now, BRICS expanded from 5 to 9 members effective January 2024, adding Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, and Ethiopia, with Indonesia joining in 2025. India's position is that BRICS should be a forum for development dialogue, not an anti Western ideological bloc. Now, India has invested approximately $500 million in the Shahid Beheshti terminal at Chabahar port on Iran's southeastern coast. A 10-year operational agreement was signed in May 2024. Now, Chabahar gives India direct maritime access to Afghanistan and Central Asia without going through Pakistan. It is India's only connectivity alternative to the China-Pakistan CPEC route. Now, the International North-South Transport Corridor is a 7,200 kilometer multimodal route. Shipped from Mumbai to Chabahar, then road and rail through Iran and Russia to Central Asia and Europe. It reduces Mumbai-Moscow shipping time by 40% compared to the Suez route and is strategically critical for India-Russia trade. BRICS is the grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plus 5 new members, 10 total as of 2025. Now, the INSTC is the International North-South Transport Corridor, 7,200 kilometers India-Iran-Russia multimodal route. Chabahar is the Iran's deep water port, India's gateway to Central Asia, bypassing Pakistan. Strategic autonomy again is the India's foreign policy principle of independent decision making, not bloc alignment. Secondary sanctions is the US penalties on non-US entities doing business with sanctioned country like Iran. And JCPOA is the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. 2015 Iran nuclear deal, US withdrew in 2018. That's today's 6 finance bill, critical minerals, China border, data sovereignty, WTO, and BRICS. Revise the keywords. See you tomorrow.